in the next act of this staged play. In the meantime, you take care, and we'll do our homework, and I'll be back with you, I hope, next week. It's Mae Brussel, Carmel, California.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
I think a new world order is emerging.
An inside job? How dare you? How dare you?
To create, so to say, mass-produced models of human beings arranged in some kind of a scientific caste system.
We shall go on to the end. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall never surrender.
Good day, everybody. It's Saturday, 22 February 2014. And this is UCY.tv with the Solvinur Event. It's called the Solvinur Event because that's the name I made up for myself on the internet, Solvinur. It's actually a gaming name, but I just took it along. And first thing I'm going to talk about is this one here. I don't know if you guys have Peer Block, P-E-E-R Block. Current version of them that I have is 1.2. And last week I had University of Colorado. This week it's University of Manitoba. Triton Digital, alphamin.com. They try again and again and again and again, right? Targus.info, they also keep trying. So what happens is, they somehow managed to try to get data from my computer. I don't know what kind of data. Or they're trying to steal computer power or whatever. But they give you, not only telling you, this peer block is telling you who is trying to get on your computer, but also who is trying to send to. So last week I had Colorado University, and this week it's Manitoba, and last week I went to the website for the first time in my whole life of the Colorado University to get their email and send them an email saying, hey, what you doing on my computer? Yeah. And I got a reply back, well, have you ever been to our website before? No, I've never been to your website before until I went to get this email address here. I never got a reply from them. He said he didn't have a clue. So I told him that there were many other universities who did this also, because I'm naming you these two now here, but in the last years, there are many universities have been trying to get information from my computer. I don't know what kind of information. Now, how do I know that this is from my computer? It's because this peer block not only gives you who is trying to do this, but it's telling you the source and destination. And the source is 192.168.0.200, okay? That is the internal address of your own computer, people. That goes for everybody. Alright? So remember that. 192.168. That's your own computer, you see? So, I don't know if any of you guys have that, but you should check it out. It's funny. I mean, seriously, what are these universities doing? I suspect they are stealing computer power, but I'm suspecting that they're they are doing this on many, many computers. And I wonder, how did they get to my computer? Because I've never been to their website or anything. Manitoba, University of Manitoba. I tell you what, I didn't even know they had a university there. You know? So, how did they do that? How did they contact my computer? And now trying to send information from my computer. Yes, Jules in the chat says 192.168 cross is always internal address. Exactly. You see, but the source in this case is like 208.92.53.43. And another source is 91, 103, 140, 6. All on port 80. Another destination is 130, 179, 9847. And I did, excuse me, I did in the past check those out. Because you can just, get information on the internet about these destination addresses. And it tells you exactly where it's going. So something is trying to get information from my internal address to some kind of other destination. Alright? Why? I never gave you permission to come on my computer. I mean, I'm not an expert, but they've have to have had installed some kind of program to do that, right? Because I'm letting PeerBlock block everything, And if they're trying to get on my computer from their destination, I should get a different source, right? Yeah, that's Chinese to me, Jules. Do a reverse DNS to see who it is. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Yeah. Could be your university hackers hanging out bored. Okay, Jules. But still, I don't like it. This is my computer. Get lost. Yeah. So anyway, had to get that off my chest before I got into the topic for today. So anyway, how you doing, everybody? It's weekend! Yeah. There's a few people in the chat already. Good morning! Hecty and JJ and Joe and Jules and Justy and Rooster and Two and Ons. Welcome! So, have you come for education? Yeah. Might be a bit arrogant of me to say, but I regard this event, this Solvinur event, more or less as an educational program. And that's because in the schools today, they're not educating anymore. Educating comes from the Latin, the word, and it means to draw out. In other words, it means that a teacher should draw out what is in the student or the pupil. And, that can be different things for different children. One could be very good in math, for instance. Another could be very good in languages. Right? So that's where you start moving the pupil along then. And that way you would get a society that is filled with very, very skilled people. And your society would thrive. But today's schooling system, see, there's a difference between education and schooling. Today's schooling system is only meant to make you a cogwheel in the system that already exists. You see? So, then you cannot, as a society, steer your own direction. You see, you're being steered, so to speak. So, one of the reasons why the education has turned into schooling is that they're not teaching the trivium anymore in schools. There's only a couple of schools, according to what's his name again? Oh, you guys know I'm very bad with names, right? I just can't remember them. He's doing a little bit better at the moment, but he's been very sick. He can't, walk properly. And he's being taken care of. John Gatto. Yes. John Gatto. That's Gatto. You should check him out on YouTube. He is a lifelong teacher. He was a lifelong teacher. He won many awards. And it was good to be a student of his. And so he said that there were only I believe he said that there were 8. I'm not quite sure, but that there were only 8 schools where they would teach the trivium. And those are high-end schools, right? Those are, as far as I can see anyway, above university level. They call themselves a university, probably, but they're above that level because they are teaching the trivium there. That's why they are above university level. University level today is also only meant to keep the system running as it is. That's what it's for. Yeah, Hecti John Gatto. There's, with an A, Gatto. You should check him out, Hecti. Talking to the people in the chat. Yeah, I don't know, maybe that's a wrong translation. Iota, high end, but I guess you get what I mean, right? Yeah, sometimes I make, sometimes, this is not very much times though, very many times. Because my mind basically functions in English. Yeah. Anyway, sometimes Dutch gets in the way. Let's see, John Taylor Gatto, yes, now with beer and flavor, that's the one. Weapons of mass instruction, indeed, Joe Friday. No, that's not funny, Iota, that's what he wrote, that's a book he wrote. Yeah, weapons of mass instruction, you see? That tells it all, right? So, go to YouTube, check him out. By the way, in case you're wondering, I'm talking to the people in the chat. You can go there if you open your web browser, go to ucy.tv, ucy.tv, and of course you see why that is called UCY. And then you mouse over shows. Then you can see what other events there are. And if you click on any of them, you end up in the chat room. And talk to like-minded people there. Yeah, so I listened to all of what I could find from John Taylor Gatto. It was fantastic. And he had a whole series on the history also. That's why I know that the trivium used to be taught. And that's how I know that one room schooling is very, very much better than what we have today. When I went to school, that was already gone also, because we had first class, second class, up to sixth class. And after that they would decide where to send you next. But that was one school of 6 years. And you were stuck with all the children of your same age. So that's bad. You should be, it would be better if 7, 8, and 9-year-olds were together with 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds. Because these 15-year-olds can help the other children, you see. And it's also better for social contacts. Alright? This JJ, was until we adapted the Prussian schooling system. This is how it went, JJ. The Germans had lost the war. And they figured, well, this is not so good. How do we make sure that we don't lose the next war? Yeah. This is how it came about. This is also from John Taylor Gatto, guys. What I'm telling you now. Excuse me for the coughing, but... So the Germans lost the war and they wanted to figure out a way how to not lose a war. And they found out that the reason that they lost the war was because the soldiers were thinking for themselves. Yeah. You see, they made decisions on the battlefield. And that didn't work out well because, these soldiers would save their own lives and run away, right? That's what you do when you think for yourself. And you see a situation that is unholdable, right? Who are you talking about, JJ, so I can name it? Yeah, it'll take a while before JJ gets that. So I can name her. And so, the Germans, the Prussians, they devised a schooling system in which the student would no longer think for himself, but would just follow orders. And that's how they thought they would not lose the next war. So, yeah, that's correct, what JJ says here, as far as I know anyway. I haven't done complete research on this, but this already started when I was very, very young. I was already told about the Zionists and the Bolsheviks. And JJ says most of the high-ranking Bolsheviks were Jewish philosophers. Yeah, I don't know if they were philosophers, but you could probably say that a lot of them, like more than 70% or so, were Jewish. So, yeah. Then another person says, Bolshevism is in place now, disguised as political correctness and terror war. Yeah, well, I would word that differently. I would say Nazism is in place now. Yeah. You see how we people as a truth community don't even get along? It's ridiculous, isn't it? I'm thinking they both are sides to be put up against each other. You see, we shouldn't fall for that. It's Hegelian dialectic. Probably. Yeah, though I'm not going to say that these things are fake. Usually in a Hegelian dialectic, the things are fake. So, or maybe not usually, but a lot of times. Yeah, they call it the communistic school in Frankfurt. How's that, huh? What is a communistic school in Frankfurt doing in Germany, right? You'd figure these Germans had enough of it. But by that time it was already so far that these people could do whatever they want. Like our queen, she married a fricking Nazi. She marries a Nazi. Shortly after, the Germans were freed from the Nazi. Like, how dare you, right? But, the people just, go along. So, that about that. So the education system, right? That is one way in which the people are controlled, you see? And therefore, by teaching you how to think for yourself, like you normally would, we should be able to turn this around. And like I said, I need more listeners, like millions of them. Yeah. But it's a natural way in which humans function. You see, to think for yourself should be a natural thing, but it's being suppressed by the schooling system that we have today. What's JJ saying here? Well, they came to America and infiltrated our entire education and higher education system. Yes, that's correct, JJ. Before that, you still had a one schooling system. You see? One school, one room, one room schooling. Yeah. And then, they changed that. It started in Germany, but it spread out all over America. I believe, I'm not quite sure about this, but I believe that California was the first one, but I'm not sure. Could be, Minnesota? I'm not sure anymore. Massachusetts, yeah, Massachusetts, something like that. Was the first one. Yeah. And then it spread out all over. Because the quote-unquote leaders were either told or saw that this was a better way to control the people. Now with, JJ says, now with social media, Edward Bernays would be whacking his butt with all the carnage he could create. Yeah. Edward Bernays, people, if you haven't ever checked him out, type it into Google, use the word propaganda with it, and you will see where that word comes from. You see? You will see where the new term for propaganda comes from, I should say. Yeah, it's funny they both start, or have the PR in the middle, or at the start, I mean. I'm getting confused here. Yeah, so public relations. Alright? That's newspeak for propaganda. Because Edward Bernays coined that term. And you can find that on internet. He speaks about it himself. You can see him as an old man speaking about it. So, yeah, he's propaganda got a bad name, so I came up with a new term. Yeah. Can you believe these people? I don't like those people. They're traitors as far as I'm concerned. Massachusetts, okay. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. It helps if people spell it actually out. Oh, is that so, Joe? So, see, they're trying to give it a bad name, right? Joe Friday says, we were always told one room schools were primitive and backwards. No, they were not. They were actually very, very good. You go and type into Google, I don't know exactly what year, but I believe it was 1850 or 1856 or something. Right? That's over 140, 150, 160 years ago. Try and find one of the tests they did and see how well you fare at that. And then tell me again that it was backwards, you know? I tried doing one of those tests. I failed miserably. You know, that got me mad also. One of the things that gets me mad, a lot of things get me mad, almost anything gets me mad, because almost anything is tied to keeping this system in place, you see. In the meantime, a lot of people have joined in the chat, which you can get to at ucui.tv, mouse over shows, and click on any of them. I see Lady Pitbull has joined. Welcome, Iota. Hello. Dan has joined, and a couple of more anons. And now with B, I believe. So welcome everybody. How you doing? So, yeah. Sometimes I'm thinking like I should talk a little bit about waking up, but I know I'd be talking to the choir for most of the people. But I'll just say one thing about it for this time then. There's one good thing about waking up, and that is that you can't go back to sleep. It's impossible. Your consciousness will not allow it, because your consciousness has risen to a higher level, and it will not be torn down again. It's just impossible, you see. So that's a good thing about waking up. Why do I use the word consciousness? Because it ties to the word knowledge. No, Dan, the topic for today should be trivium. I'm just rambling on for the moment. But I'm not quite sure about this, because I did check it in the etymological dictionary and there was no mention of it. But the word consciousness might tie... there's John Gatto in the chat. Very well, Hecty. The word consciousness might tie to knowledge, and that's logical, to be honest with you. How does it tie etymologically? It ties through the word science, which sounds like science, you see. Consciousness. Con means to bring together. So you bring together this knowledge in a being, right? That's consciousness. That's how I would translate consciousness. And, so yeah. There's another reason why, consciousness ties to knowledge. In Dutch, I'll give you a Dutch word here, just to explain it to you. The Dutch word is bewustzijn, right? So the first two letters, they can be removed, because that's a prefix that we use for a lot of things. The last word zijn means to be, but not in this case. In many cases it doesn't mean that. As far as I know, it doesn't mean that in this case also. But the word zijn and the word bewustzijn, it's an, do you call that affix? Something that goes beyond, at the end of a word? I'm not exactly sure. My English isn't that good, guys. But so what you're left with is the word wust. You see? W-S-T. And that etymologically ties to aware. You see? When you are aware of something. Are you aware that? You say. And in Dutch you say, ben je je bewust van? You see, there's the word bewust again. Are you aware that? You see, and being aware means that you have some knowledge about something. You see? So knowledge and consciousness go together. Yeah, sure, Dan. I'll type it in the chat for you. And make that, I'll tear it apart also, so you know that it's actually 3 words, you see? It's, bewustzijn is consciousness. I've typed it in the chat now. And it's be, and then bewust, and then zijn. Those are actually 3, you could, yeah, they're not really words, but, It looks Polish, says JJ. Nah, it's Dutch. Yeah. So the word bewustzijn is, you can make it shorter and you get bewust, and that just means aware. You see? And why would the word aware or rust tie to knowledge? Because it probably, and I'm saying probably here, because again, I do not have very professional etymological dictionaries, but this is logical as far as I'm concerned. It's probably from the Indian word, and remember, English and German are, English and German, yes, German also. But English and Dutch are of an Indo-Germanic root. So in India, there's the word Veda. You see? Veda, Vika, and aware. Those words tie, you see? And the word Veda in India, it means knowledge. You see, that's where you get Wiccans from. It means knowledge. In the German you have Wissen, which means knowledge. I hope you guys hear the etymological ties there. You see? Dwarfish. JJ. Yeah. Who is that, Jules? Richard Gage? Could you give me some more information about him so I can promote this, and tell, when is Chuck on? So I can get that on the air. Excuse me, guys. Let me get a drink of my coffee here. And roll another cigarette. Yay! So Chuck is having Richard Gage on, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, keep that in mind. Who's Richard Gage, guys? Yeah, the name vaguely sounds familiar, but I'm not exactly sure. Is he tied to 9/11 or something, or what? I'm not exactly sure. I'm thinking it was a founder. Yeah, see? Founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. You can find that into Google if you type in AE 9/11 Truth. Awesome. Yeah, I really love those people. Because, you see, oh my God, I got so freaking mad at this dude at the phone that I called here in the Netherlands. I called the university, right? And I told him, can you connect me to some engineering teacher? And so I was connected, right? I was like, wow, I can actually talk to an engineer, right? And I told him, gave him a little introduction about the World Trade Center coming apart in 11 seconds. And I asked him, I said, this can't be done with the steel like that, right? And he says, can you believe this guy, what he says? He says, no, when the steel gets hot, it's like spaghetti. Can you believe this guy? So like 400 meters down, the steel turned to spaghetti. Alright? Unbelievable. You know, if anything, heat is transferred through steel very, very fast. Right? So if anything, it would stay stronger at the point of impact. Because the heat is transferred very, very fast. Can you believe this? So Chuck at 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. EST. Is this, Lady Pitbull says, is that morning time for you, Sol? 8 p.m. would be 2 p.m. for me. You see, you guys are in the morning still, and I'm already in the afternoon. It's 16:34 here in the Netherlands. So that's 4:30. So, yeah. This guy really freaked me out. I didn't spew out at him on the phone. I just started laughing. Yeah, why could I do that? Because I had an education in steel myself, you know? I know what steel does under circumstances, under pressure, under heat. He was towing the Osama bin Laden line, did it. He was pushing it. I don't know why. Is he just that stupid or what? And talking to a teacher, you know? So, anyway. Let's see. Guess we should get into the topic for today. Yeah. That's one of the things that freaked me out, Jules. I don't mind talking about 9/11, guys. I saw it on, maybe you've had enough of it, but to me it is a very important event. So Jules, she said she's talking about melting steel, melting, whatever. And I already knew then that there was something fishy going on. No, Dan, I'm not missing it. Absolutely not. I haven't played World of Warcraft for a long time. So on CNN they were showing what was going on in New York. And I was looking at these towers, and all of a sudden I see stuff coming out of the towers, and it had an orange-like color, and it was like dripping from the towers, and I was like, what? That looks like somebody is using a huge welding equipment there or something. That's impossible. Steel isn't going to melt due to fire like that. I know. I used to weld stuff. I know what kind of temperatures are required. We welded with 3,000 degrees, people. You don't get that kind of temperature with a kerosene fuel. So I knew that there was something fishy going on. And all of a sudden, gone towers. And I was like, what? This is impossible. I was like, am I dreaming or what? I really pinched my own arm to see if I was dreaming. Unbelievable. Because it was really, it's impossible. It happened, you know, but... So there you go. I was still quite naive at that time, 2001. I was thinking like, okay, the American government is going to come out and tell us how this happened, right? Yeah. Here's another one with John Taylor Ghetto from Hecty in the chat. Very good, buddy. And so when the American government came out with an explanation, I immediately rejected it, because I knew that wasn't possible. And to be honest with you, I thought more people were going to know this, but no, that was quite the opposite. Most people just accepted the story that was told to them. And it's also because of the schooling that they had, you see. No thinking for themselves. Yeah, I have trouble with authority, period. You know, this started since I quote unquote, and I'm not talking waking up as I'm usually talking about now. There's a second explanation, let's say definition for the word waking up that I use sometimes. Is that when for the first time, as far as you remember, you notice that you are aware of your surroundings. Okay? So when I was like 4 years old, they used to send me to little children class. I don't know what you call it in England, in America. In Dutch it's called peuterspeelzaal. Yeah. Literally translated, that would be something like, there is a word for peuter, but little children playroom, right? And the point was that it was closed on Wednesdays. Yeah, but I didn't know that. And this Wednesday, my mother, she didn't take me to school. And I said, hey, you're supposed to take me to school today. And she says, no, the school is closed. And I'm like, I don't believe you. I said, take me to school. And she says, no, the school is closed. And I said, no, take me to school. I want to go to school. And she got so bored of me that I just kept saying, take me to school, because I really didn't believe her. And she took me to school, and I checked the door, and the door was closed. And I walked around the school, and I saw nobody in there. And I was like, what? The school is closed. You see? Always check what people are telling you. Don't just take it because it's your mother that says so. Right? Start thinking for yourself. Do investigations. Do your own research. You should always do that. That's why I'm quite amazed that it took such a big event as 9/11 to start waking me up. In the second sense of the word. In the second definition we use today. Yeah. So I've always had a problem with authority that might have helped, me thinking on my own for a little bit better than other people. William Rodriguez. Yeah, that's a word you could type into Google as well. I did see, as far as I know, I did see a lot of what is available from him on the internet. William Rodriguez, Rodriguez. He was a janitor with a loper, as we say in Dutch. It's a key that you can use to open any doors. And apparently he helped save a lot of people. And he was also the one that confirmed that there were explosions going on in the basement of the World Trade Centers at the same time that the planes flew in. So that's kind of astonishing, isn't it? That's a red flag, you see? Yeah. So, let's see. Where's the topic for today? If you guys, you spelled his name wrong, Lady Pitbull? Okay, well, people will get it anyway if you spell it like that. It doesn't matter. Okay, where's the topic for today? Where is it? Where did I put it? Here it is. So, I'm not following the chat anymore, guys. If you want to ask a question to me personally, you can do so. You should have Skype on, though. Then send a contact request to Solvinur. That's Solvinur. And I will accept your contact request, and then you can ask a question which I will put on air and answer it to the best of my abilities. You're welcome, Lady Pitbull. How you doing, by the way? Okay, really getting into the topic for today now. We're picking up with the appeals, the fallacies. This one is called appeal to ridicule. And it's used a lot. Also known as appeal to mockery. A description Appeal to ridicule is a fallacy in which ridicule or mockery is substituted for evidence in an argument. This line of quote-unquote reasoning has the following form. I would say this line of quote-unquote trickery has the following form. 1. X, which in some form of ridicule is presented, typically directed at the claim. Let's try this again. X, which is some form of ridicule, is presented, typically directed at the claim. 2, therefore, claim C is false. Yeah, it can be directed at the claim. It's also sometimes directed at the person, in which case it's not only appeal to ridicule, but also an ad hominem. You see? Put them together. You know? So, this sort of trickery is fallacious because mocking a claim does not show that it is false. This is especially clear in the following example. 1 and 1 is 2. And then somebody says, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Yeah. So that's the form it takes. It should be noted that showing that a claim is ridiculous through the use of legitimate methods, such as a non-fallacious argument, can make it reasonable to reject the claim. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember now, guys. I told you about the negative. Remember that? That I said you can't prove a negative? Yeah. What's it called again? Ignorantium. Ad ignorantium. Remember that this has, there's a different side to this. And it involves two people. And if somebody makes a claim and they're not giving arguments for it, it's just an arbitrary claim, then the negative holds the field. Even though you cannot prove the negative holds the field. You should force the guy or girl that is making the claim to show that his claim is true. You should ask for proof. And if he can't show proof, then the negative holds the field. You can always say, well, that's not true. You've not shown enough evidence for this. I had a run-in with somebody from the government also. And she said that I was almost starting to laugh because it's really ridiculous. But she said that people are forced to work. It's obligatory to work. You know? And I said, well, where's your evidence for this? And she says, well, I don't know which law that says. But I know it's true, she said. Well, you have to be able to show some evidence for that. And she didn't. And so I used the negative holds the field, and I started doing my own research. And I knew she was right in some sense of the way, but not how she put it. You know, it's not that everybody is forced to work, because that's a law that is, you can't keep that law in place, because there's not enough work for everybody. You know, if that were true, if it were true that everybody had to work, obligatory, then about 600,000, 700,000 Dutch people would be breaking the law. Right? And they should be reprimanded. That's not happening, you see. The law cannot be enforced because there are not 600,000 jobs to be filled. You see, so that's why it's fallacious. There is, however, a law in the Netherlands that says that you have to accept a job that is offered to you if you're unemployed. You see, so that's a whole different thing, you see. That's something completely different than saying everybody has to work. You know, that's just a blatant claim that cannot be held. So that's an example. And always know that the negative holds the field unless there is proof given for the claim being made. Alright? So do your own research. See if something can be proven or not. If it cannot be proven, then you know that the claim is false. Or you can hold the claim as being false. You know, it's better to hold something as being false than to hold a lie as being true, you know? Okay, so where were we? We were at ridicule, appeal to ridicule. One form of this line of reasoning is known as reductio ad absurdum. Reductio ad absurdum. Absurdum, you know? Absurd. That's an English word, right? That's absurd. You see? Reducing to absurdity. In this sort of argument, the idea to show that a contradiction, a statement that must be false, or an absurd result follows from a claim. Yeah? Always check for contradictions. If people make claims, check for contradictions. Yeah? So that when you say everybody has to work, there is a contradiction there because there are not enough jobs for everybody to work. You see, that's a contradiction. And if there's a contradiction, there's something wrong. For example, continuing here, Bill claims that a member of a minority group cannot be a racist. Yeah. Like I said last week, the examples here used make you want to reply, but I'll try to refrain from it. So again, the example is, Bill claims that a member of a minority group cannot be a racist. However, this is absurd. Think about this. White males are a minority in the world. Given Bill's claim, it would follow that no white male could be racist. Hence, the Klan, the Nazis, and white supremacists are not racist organizations. Okay, I'm going to say one thing about this. When he's using the example here in the hence the Klan, Nazis, right, and white supremacists, he puts them in one sentence, right? There's one there that doesn't fit. And those are the Nazis. They don't fit there. You see? You've got this idea about these blonde-eyed blue hair, blonde-eyed, yeah. Blue hair, lol. Blonde hair, blue eyes, right? Well, that was not the race that they were after, people. The race that they were after, it was brownish. Those were, according to the Nazis, were the supreme people. You see? Since the claim that the Klan, Nazis and white supremacists are not racist organization is clearly absurd, it can be concluded that the claim that a member of a minority cannot be a racist is false. Yeah? And a couple of examples. Sure, my worthy opponent claims that we should lower tuition, but it is just laughable. Yeah. That's example. Example 2. Equal rights for women? Yeah, I'll support that when they start paying for dinner and taking out the trash. Ha ha. Fetch me another brewski, Mildred. Example of appeal to ridicule. Third one. Those crazy conservatives, they think a strong military is the key to peace. Such fools. Yeah? Appeal to ridicule. Because he's using the word crazy. And fools. You see? Appeal to ridicule. Next one is appeal to spite. The appeal to spite fallacy is a fallacy in which spite is substituted for evidence when an argument is made against a claim. This line of trickery, and guys, I'm using the word trickery here whenever it says reasoning, okay? So keep that in mind, because the word reasoning is in quotes. And I don't think it's reasoning, and that's why it's in quotes, but I'll just make it clear for you, it's trickery. This line of trickery has the following form. 1. Claim X is presented with the intent of generating spite. 2. Therefore, claim C is false or true. This sort of trickery is fallacious because a feeling of spite does not count as evidence for or against a claim. This is quite clear in the following case. Bill claims that the earth revolves around the sun. But remember that dirty trick he pulled on you last week? Now, doesn't my claim that the sun revolves around the earth make sense to you? Of course, there are cases in which a claim that evokes a feeling of spite or malice can serve as legitimate evidence. Really? Could you give an example of that? However, it should be noted that the actual feeling of spite or malice is not evidence. Yeah? Exactly. The following is an example of such a situation. Here we go. Jill says, I think I'll vote for Jane to be treasurer of now. Do you guys, are you allowed to vote who's going to be treasurer? That's amazing. I thought that was done in circle. Anyway, Jill says, or maybe she's in the inner circle. Jill says, I think I'll vote for Jane to be treasurer of now. Vicky says, remember that time your purse vanished at a meeting last year? And Jill says, yes. And Vicky says, well, I found out that she stole your purse and stole some other stuff from people. And then Jill says, I'm not voting for her. In this case, Jill has a good reason not to vote for Jane, since the treasurer should be honest. A known thief would be a bad choice. Yeah? As long as Jill concludes that she should vote against Jane because she's a thief, and not just out of spite, her reasoning would not be fallacious. Okay? You see? That's okay. That's a good example. Next one. Example 1. Bill, I think that Jane did a great job this year. I'm going to nominate her for the award. And then Dave says, have you forgotten last year? Remember that she didn't nominate you last year? And then Bill says, you're right. I'm not going to nominate her. You get it, right? Hold on, guys. 1 sec. Cigarettes. Another example. Appeal to spite. Jill says, I think Jane's idea is a really good one and will really save a lot of money for the department. Yeah. And then Bill says, maybe remember how she showed that your paper had a fatal flaw when you read it at the convention last year? And then Jill says, I'd just forgotten about that. I think I'll go with your idea instead. Yeah. Next one is appeal to tradition, guys. Also known as appeal to the old. Old ways are best. Fallacious appeal to the past. Appeal to age. Appeal to tradition is a fallacy that occurs when it is assumed that something is better or correct simply because it's older, traditional, or always has been done. This sort of trickery has the following form. 1. X is old or traditional. 2. Therefore, X is correct or better. This sort of trickery is fallacious because the age of something does not automatically make it correct or better than something newer. This is made quite obvious by the following example. The theory that witches and demons cause disease is far older than the theory that microorganisms cause diseases. Therefore, the theory about witches and demons must be true. No? By the way, the word witches probably also ties to the word Vika, which comes from the word Veda, which means knowledge. You see? You probably have seen some pictures of witches with books in their hands. You know? This sort of trickery is appealing for a variety of reasons. First, people often prefer to stick with what is older or traditional. This is fairly common psychological characteristic of people, which may stem from the fact that people feel more comfortable about what has been around longer. Second, sticking with things that are older or traditional is often easier than testing new things. Hence, people often prefer older and traditional things out of laziness. Yeah. Is that so? Is that because of laziness? I don't know, guys. Hence, appeal to tradition is a somewhat common fallacy. It should not be assumed that new things must be better than old things. See the fallacy appeal to novelty. Okay, let's try this again. It should not be assumed that new things must be better than old things any more than it should be assumed that old things are better than new things. The age of thing does not, in general, have any bearing on its quality or correctness in this context. Huh? In the case of tradition, assuming that something is correct just because it is considered a tradition is poor reasoning. For example, if the belief that 1 and 1 equals 56 were a tradition of a group of people, it would hardly follow that it is true. Yeah, bad example. Anyway, continuing. Obviously, age does have a bearing in some contexts. For example, if a person concluded that aged wine would be better than brand new wine, he would not be committing an appeal to tradition. This is because in such cases the age of a thing is irrelevant to its quality. Thus, the fallacy is committed only when the age is not, in and of itself, relevant to the claim. One final issue that must be considered is the test of time. In some cases, people might be assuming that because something has lasted as a tradition or has been around a long time, that it is true because it has passed the test of time. If a person assumes that something must be correct or true simply because it has persisted a long time, then he has committed an appeal to tradition. Yeah, exactly. After all, as history has shown, people can persist in accepting false claims for centuries. Yeah. Even today. Yeah. However, if a person argues that the claim or thing in question has successfully stood up to challenges and tests for a long period of time, then they would not be committing a fallacy. Yeah? In such cases, the claim would be backed by evidence. Yeah? See? There's a difference. If you believe in something because it's been around for a long time, or if you accept something as true because you're being presented with the evidence. You see? As an example, the theory that matter is made of subatomic particles has survived numerous tests and challenges over the years, so there is a weight of evidence in its favor. The claim is reasonable to accept because of the weight of this evidence and not because the claim is old. Well, that claim is not that old, is it? Hey, cat. My cat is inside. He's asking for some attention. How you doing, buddy? Meows. Blah, blah. Thus, a claim's surviving legitimate challenges and passing valid tests for a long period of time can justify the acceptance of a claim. But mere age or persistence does not warrant accepting a claim. Okay? Example 1. Sure, I believe in God. Which one, by the way? People have believed in God for thousands of years, so it seems clear that God must exist. After all, why else would the belief last so long? Yeah? Let's appeal to tradition. Example 2. Gunther is the father of Conan. They live in a small island and their culture women are treated as property to be exchanged at will by men. Okay, so imagine this. Gunther is the father of Conan. They live on a small island and in their culture, women are treated as property to be exchanged at will by men. And now Conan says, you know, father, when I was going to school in the United States, I saw that American women are not treated as property. In fact, I read a book by this person named Mill. Would that be John Stuart Mill? I don't know, guys, I'm not sure. In which he argued for women's rights. And then Gunther says, so what's your point, son? And Conan says, well, I think that it might be wrong to trade my sister for cattle. They are human beings and should have a right to be master of their own fate. And then Gunther says, what a strange and newfangled notion you picked up in America. That country must be even more barbaric than I imagined. Now, think about this, son. We have been trading women for cattle for as long as our people have lived on this island. It is a tradition that goes back into the mist of time. And then Conan says, but I still think there's something wrong with it. And then Gunther says, nonsense, my boy. A tradition this old must be endorsed by the gods and must be right. Okay? That's a reasonably good example. Yeah. Example 3. Of course, this mode of government is the best. Right. There's I sense a different kind of fallacy in the sentence itself. You know, he says, of course, this mode of government is the best, assuming, or implying actually, that there are also other modes of government. And there you have the fallacy of false alternatives, you see. Example 3. Of course, this mode of government is the best. We have had this government for over 200 years and no one has talked about changing it all the time. So it has... Is that English, guys? I thought that was like bad English. You shouldn't talk like that. But here you go. It says in this PDF, so it has got to be good. Shouldn't it be like, so it has to be good? What is it with this word got? God, where does that word come from anyway? It sounds like God. Yeah. So, but about the first sentence, I'll try and explain a little bit. It says, of course, this mode of government is the best, implying that there are also other modes of government. Now, it's probably not going to be so in the future that there will be no form of government. However, the thing is that people see government as an authority. And that's where it goes wrong. You see, it is the people that have given the power to the government. You see, so the government should act as a servant. It's the people that are the master. The government is the servant. So the government should never ever be seen as an authority, because it gets its authority from the people. And that's what so many people fail to see. And that's also a reason why we're in this mess, somehow. You see, we have the power, and we should not give it away. Example 4. A reporter is interviewing the head of a family that has been involved with a feud with another family. Okay? So that's the situation here. A reporter is interviewing the head of a family that has been involved with a feud with another family. A reporter says, Mr. Hatfield, why are you still fighting it out with the McCoys? And then Hatfield says, well, you see, young man, my father feuded with the McCoys, and his father feuded with them, and so did my great-grandfather. And the reporter says, but why? What started all this? And Hatfield says, I don't really know. I'm sure it was the McCoys who started it all, though. And the reporter says, if you don't know why you're fighting, why don't you just stop? And then Hatfield says, stop? What, are you crazy? This feud has been going on for generations, so I'm sure there's a darn good reason why it started. So I aim to keep it going. It has got to be the right thing to do. Isn't this, the meaning of the sentence is the same when I say it has to be the right thing to do, right? It just sounds so, low, I don't know, or something. To say, it has got to be. What is it with that word got? Where does it come from anyway? Got. Sounds like, it has its root in to have, but, the word before that also does, so it doesn't make sense to me, you see, that's why. Hand me my shooting iron, boy. I see one of the McCoy skunks sneaking in the cornfield. Okay, so that was appeal to tradition. Moving on to the next one. This is not a simple one, the next one. I did a test on fallacies a while ago, and maybe I understood it wrong, but there's different names for it and different forms of it, and I'm not sure whether the different forms are the same or not, you know? It's called petitio. That's for short. if you're talking amongst people that know about fallacies, and you say petitio, they know exactly what you're talking about. That's P-E-T-I-T-I-O. Okay? This is begging the question, also known as circular reasoning. Reasoning in a circle. It's called petitio principii. Alright? Petitio principii. P-E-T-I-T-I-O. Principii. P-R-I-N-C-I-P-I-I. Okay? If you type that into Google, you will get a good explanation. So here we go. Description. Begging the question is a fallacy in which the premises include the claim that the conclusion is true, or, directly or indirectly, assume that the conclusion is true. This sort of trickery typically has the following form. 1. Premises in which the truth of a conclusion is claimed or the truth of a conclusion is assumed, either directly or indirectly. 2. Claim C, the conclusion is true. Yeah. This sort of reasoning is fallacious, this sort of trickery is fallacious because simply assuming that the conclusion is true in the premises does not constitute evidence for that conclusion. Now that's what you will get taught if you ever follow a class in logic. You know, those are two different things. There's premise, inference, conclusion. You see? Now they're saying in this trickery, in this fallacy, the conclusion and the premise are mixed up somehow. And you can't do that. You need inference. You know? Obviously, simply assuming a claim is true does not serve as evidence for that claim. Yeah? This is especially clear in particularly blatant cases. X is true. The evidence for the claim, for this claim, is that X is true. That's a bad example, as far as I'm concerned, anyway, but some cases of question begging are fairly blatant, while others can be extremely subtle. Okay. You guys, you're going to have to excuse me for one couple of seconds. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. Here's a couple of examples. Some cases of question begging are very blatant, while others can be extremely subtle. Yeah. The subtle ones include circular reasoning, for instance. I've seen arguments where the premise is made, and then from the premise there is an inference made, and from that inference there's another inference made. You know, it's like A leads to B, leads to C, leads to D, leads to A. That is circular reasoning, and it's very trickery. And it shouldn't be accepted as evidence or proof. Okay, so here we go with an example. Bill says, God must exist. And then Jill says, how do you know? And then Bill says, because the Bible says so. And then Jill says, why should I believe the Bible? And then Bill says, because the Bible was written by God. Okay, this is a good example. This is circular reasoning, petitio. The conclusion is integrated in the premise. You can't do that. That's not logic. Example 2. If such actions were not illegal, then they would not be prohibited by law. You see, that's a good example again. Example 3. The belief in God is universal. After all, everyone believes in God. Not as good as example 2, but there you go. Example 4. Interviewer. Your resume looks impressive, but I need another reference. And Bill says, Jill can give me a good reference. And then interviewer says, good, but how do I know that Jill is trustworthy? And then Bill says, certainly, I can vouch for her. Now you know that the interviewer is like, what's going on here, right? So next one is biased generalization. Also known as biased statistics, loaded sample, prejudiced statistics, prejudiced sample, loaded statistics, biased induction, interesting, biased generalization. Phew, what's this one, guys? Description. This fallacy is committed when a person draws a conclusion about a population based on a sample that is biased or prejudiced in some manner. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a population, guys, but I should say this description is rather using it as an example. Is we're using population as an example, right? Because as far as I know, this is not only about populations. Okay, so again, description. This fallacy is committed when a person draws a conclusion about a population based on a sample that is biased or prejudiced in some manner. It has the following form. 1. Sample S, which is biased, is taken from population P. Right? Then 2. Conclusion C is drawn about population P based on S. Okay? You can see why that's wrong, right? The person committing the fallacy is misusing the following type of reasoning, which is known variously as inductive generalization, and statistical generalization. 1. X% of all observed A's are B's. Okay? Then 2. Therefore, X% of all A's are B's. The fallacy is committed when the sample of A's is likely to be biased in some manner. A sample is biased or loaded when the method used to take the sample is likely to result in a sample that does not adequately represent the population from which it is drawn. Biased samples are generally not reliable. As a blatant case, imagine a person is taking a sample from a truckload of small colored balls, some of which are metal and some of which are plastic. If he used a magnet to select his sample, then his sample will include a disproportionate number of metal balls. Huh? In this case, any conclusion that he might draw about the whole population of balls would be unreliable, since he would have few or no plastic balls in the sample. Alright? The general idea is that biased samples are less likely to contain numbers proportional to the whole population. For example, if a person wants to find out what the most Americans thought about gun control, a poll taken at an NRA meeting would be a biased sample. Yeah. There's something wrong here with the way it's being put, as far as I'm concerned anyway. It says here, for example, if a person wants to find out what most Americans thought about gun control, this should say, for example, if a person wants to find out how most Americans have been indoctrinated how to think about gun control. Right? That's what it should say. Continuing. Since the biased sample fallacy is committed when the sample, the observed instances, is biased or loaded, it is important to have samples that are not biased, making a generalization. The best way to do this is to take samples in ways that avoid bias. There are, in general, 3 types of samples that are aimed at avoiding bias. The general idea is that these methods, when used properly, will result in a sample that matches the whole population fairly closely. The 3 types of samples are as follows. Random sample. This is a sample that is taken in such a way that nothing but chance determines which members of the population are selected for the sample. Ideally, any individual member of the population has the same chance as being selected as any other. This type of sample avoids being biased because a biased sample is one that is taken in such a way that some members of the population have a significantly greater chance of being selected for the sample than other members. Unfortunately, creating an ideal random sample is often very difficult. Next one is stratified sample. This is a sample that is taken by using the following steps. 1. The relevant strata, this is population subgroups, are identified. 2. The number of members in each stratum is determined. And 3. A random sample is taken from each stratum in exact proportion to its size. This method is obviously most useful when dealing with stratified populations. For example, a person's income often influences how she votes. So when conducting a presidential poll, it would be a good idea to take a stratified sample using economic classes as the basis for determining the strata. Yeah. Not gonna comment on this, forget it. This method avoids loaded samples by ideally ensuring that each stratum of the population is adequately represented. Right? Then there's time-lapse sample. This type of sample is taken by taking a stratified or random sample and then taking at least one more sample with a significant lapse of time between them. After the 2 samples are taken, they can be compared for changes. This method of sample taking is very important when making predictions. A prediction based on only one sample is likely to be a hasty generalization, because the sample is likely to be too small to cover past, present and future populations. Or a biased sample, because the sample will only include instances from one period. Alright? People often commit biased sample because of bias or prejudice. For example, a person might intentionally or unintentionally seek out people or events that support his bias. As an example, a person who is pushing a particular scientific theory might tend to gather samples that are biased in favor of that theory. Who is pushing a particular scientific theory? Yeah, okay, anyway. People also commonly commit this fallacy because of laziness or sloppiness. Yeah. He doesn't have a high esteem of people, does he? He thinks people are lazy and sloppy. It is very easy to simply take a sample from what happens to be easily available rather than taking the time and effort to generate an adequate sample and draw a justified conclusion. It is important to keep in mind that bias is relative to the purpose for the sample. For example, if Bill wanted to know what NRA members thought about gun control law, then taking a sample at an NRA meeting would not be biased. Yeah? However, if Bill wanted to determine what Americans in general thought about the law, then a sample taken at an NRA meeting would be biased. Okay? A couple of examples here. Oh, the next one is interesting, guys. This is the one I told you about. Let's do the examples first here. Bill is assigned by his editor to determine what most Americans think about a new law that will place a federal tax on all modems and computers purchased. Huh. As if that matters, right? As if it matters what people think about what this new law says. Right? They're gonna do it anyway. So, the revenues from the tax will be used to enforce new online decency laws. Bill, being technically inclined, decides to use an email poll. In his poll, 95% of those surveys opposed the tax. Bill was quite surprised when 65% of all Americans voted for the taxes. You guys get to vote on taxes? Really? Seriously? That's amazing. Here in Holland we don't. You know, the government just does it. Yeah. Representative democracy, as they call it. Right? They vote for you. You don't get to vote. Could you guys give me an example in the chat, maybe? I'll try and follow it. Of where you guys are allowed to vote whether a tax is implemented or not? Yeah. Example 2. Let's see. Example 2. Let's get this Windows a little bit smaller so I can see if you guys actually put an example in of what I asked. That you can actually vote on taxes being implemented or not. Is that true? I don't know, guys. I don't live there. Alright? Example 2. The United Pacifists of America decide to run a poll to determine what Americans think about guns and gun control. Jane is assigned the task of setting up the study. To save mailing costs, she includes the survey form in a group's newsletter mailing. She's very pleased to find out that 95% of those surveyed favor gun control laws, and she tells her friends that the vast majority of Americans favor gun controls. Yeah, well, duh, it's a pacifist society, and she's using the group's newsletter mailing. You know? Joe says about the vote, they pretty much just do it here too. The vote is all for show. Aha, I see. Okay. Yeah. You see how people are indoctrinated to accept the government as authority instead of the other way around. You see? Example 3. Large-scale polls were taken in Florida, California, and Maine, and it was found that an average of 55% of those polled spent at least 14 days a year near the ocean. So it can be carefully concluded that it can be safely concluded that 55% of all Americans spend at least 14 days near the ocean of the year. Alright? Near the ocean each year. Alright, so that, I happen to know that Florida, California, have a coastline. I'm not exactly sure where Maine lies, but it's probably on the coast somewhere. You get the point, right? So the next one, this is the one that I talked about earlier. And it's a really important one. This will save you from accepting claims made by other people. They try and put they try and put some idea in your mind because you cannot deny it. You see, and that's trickery. And we'll get into why that is so. Into this next one. It's called ad ignorantiam. Ad ignorantiam. That's ADIGNORANTIAM. Ad ignorantiam. It's the burden, also known as burden of proof, appeal to ignorance. Burden of proof is a fallacy in which the burden of proof is placed on the wrong side. You see? They're trying to make you prove that a certain claim is true, and because you cannot deny it, you cannot say this is wrong, therefore it must be true. Okay, that's a fallacy. It doesn't work like that. They have to show that their claim is proof, that their claim is true by proving it. Let's try this again. Burden of proof is a fallacy in which the burden of proof so ad ignorantiam is a fallacy in which the burden of proof is placed on the wrong side. Another version occurs when a lack of evidence for side A is taken to be evidence for side B. See? In cases in which the burden of proof actually rests on side B. You see? A common name for this is an appeal to ignorance. This sort of reasoning typically has the following form. 1. Let's see. No, iota, that is not true. That's just a figure of speech. Iota. It's like sweeping the floor with you got the bath is flowing over, right? Because the tap won't close, and you're sweeping the floor to get it dry, you know, and the water just keeps flowing over. It's figuratively, iota. It's some kind of cryptic metaphor. Indeed. There you go, iota. Getting back to the PDF here. Following form for ad ignorantiam. Claim X is presented by side A and the burden of proof actually rests on side B. See, that's wrong. 2. Side B claims that X is false because there is no proof for X. Yeah? So, you guys got this? Claim X is presented by side A, and the burden of proof actually rests on side B. Okay, you shouldn't let this happen to you guys if you're side B. You should say to A like, you making claim X, you present the evidence. Then 2, side B claims that X is false because there is no proof for X. Right? Now, it looks like in this form that as if, yes, Mike, absence of evidence. That's correct. So, but in this 2, right, it says side B claims that X is false because there is no proof for X. It sounds like Side B has been trying to find proof for X. Alright? You shouldn't even let that happen. You should say to A, you come up with the proof, not me. You are claiming, not me. And this is where we, when I talked about in the beginning, where it's said that the negative holds the field. Alright? Don't accept claims just because you cannot disprove them. You see? In many situations, one side has the burden of proof resting on it. This side is obligated to provide evidence for its position. Right? The claim of the other side, the one that does not bear the burden of proof, is assumed to be true unless proven otherwise. Exactly. This is a longer way of saying the negative holds the field. You see? Again, the claim of the other side, the one that does not bear the burden of proof, is assumed to be true unless proven otherwise. And why is that? Because you cannot prove a negative. Keep that in mind. You cannot prove a negative. The difficulty in such cases is determining which side, if any, the burden of proof rests on. In many cases, settling this issue can be a matter of significant debate. In some cases, the burden of proof is set by the situation. For example, in American law, a person is assumed to be innocent until proven guilty. Hence, the burden of proof is on the prosecution. Yeah. I hope that is still true. You know. You shouldn't let it be forced on you to prove your innocence. Because you cannot. You cannot prove a negative. That's why this law was probably implemented. In American law, a person is assumed to be innocent until proven guilty. Why? Because you cannot prove a negative. That means you cannot prove that you are innocent. In means not. You see, there's the negative. As another example, in debate, the burden of proof is placed on the affirmative team. As a final example, in most cases, the burden of proof rests on those who claim something exists. Alright? Examples. Bill, I think that we should invest more money in expanding the interstate system. And then Jill says, I think that it would be a bad idea, considering the state of the treasury. And then Bill says, how can anyone be against highway improvements? Okay, how is this a petitio? How is this a petitio? This sounds more like Bill is just that's another way in which this can be committed, guys. It's simply restating. Okay, keep that in mind. The word restating. You see, Bill says, I think we should invest more money in expanding the interstate system. And then later on he says, how can anyone be against highway improvements? That's saying the same thing in different words. So he's restating what he has said before, which is a petitio. You understand? Be very wary of what people say to you, guys. Don't accept so-called arguments just because they are restated in different words. Next example. Bill. I think that some people have psychic powers. And then Jill says, what is your proof? And then Bill says, no one has been able to prove that people do not have psychic powers. Okay, there's your cannot prove a negative one. It's in the word not, you see? No one has been able to prove that people do not have psychic powers. Well, the burden of proof is not on the people that claim that there's no such thing as psychic powers. It's the other way around. If you claim that people have psychic powers, then it's your job to prove so. Alright? Now, it depends on your definition of psychic powers, but I've told you before about remote viewing, right? I do that. I remote view. It happens when, and this goes automatically. It doesn't work for me if I focus on it and try to remote view. Okay, that doesn't work. But it happened automatically when I'm in traffic. Okay, I don't have a car anymore. But when I used to have a car, or when I drove a bike, and I would come into a crossing which is obscured because of the buildings around it, and I would not be able to see if there was a car coming from the right, or bike, or whatever, I would automatically remote view across the corner, around the corner, to quote unquote see if there was anything there. And if there was, I would actually know, even before I saw it with my eyes, you see? So that is remote viewing, and I would consider that a psychic power. Okay? So, here we go. Another example of psychic power I can give you. Most of you will have had this experience. You're, for instance, you're sitting in a bus or something, or in a movie theater or anywhere, and all of a sudden you turn around your head and you look behind you and you find somebody staring at you. Have you ever had that before? That's also a form of psychic power. You know somebody's looking at you. You can feel their attention, you see? Last example. You cannot prove that God does not exist, so he does. Yeah? You cannot prove a negative. The claim, the burden of proof is placed on the wrong side here. Next one is tie to ad hominem. This one is a circumstantial ad hominem. Description. A circumstantial ad hominem is a fallacy in which one attempts to attack a claim by asserting that the person making the claim is making it simply out of self-interest. Yeah? In some cases, this fallacy involves substituting an attack on a person's circumstances, such as his religion, political affiliation, ethnic background, etc., etc. This fallacy has the following form. There are two forms here. Person A makes claim X. Okay, that's one. Person A makes claim X. 2. Person B asserts that A makes claim X because it's in A's interests to claim X. 3. Therefore, claim X is false. Okay, that doesn't have to be. It could be that the claim is true, regardless of the fact that it is in person A's interest. You see? There's another one. 1. Person A makes claim X. 2. Person B makes an attack on A's circumstances. 3. Therefore, X is false. Okay, again, this doesn't have to be so. A circumstantial ad hominem is a fallacy because a person person's interest and circumstances have no bearing on the truth or falsity of the claim being made. You see? While a person's interests will provide them with motives to support certain claims, the claims stand or fall on their own. It is also the case that a person's circumstances do not affect the truth or falsity of the claim. This is, here comes again with a 1 and 1 is 2 examples. I'm going to skip that. There are times when it is prudent to be suspicious of a person's claim, such as when it is evident that the claims are being biased by the person's interests. For example, if a tobacco company representative claims that tobacco does not cause cancer, it would be prudent to not simply accept the claim. This is because the person has a motivation to make the claim. Really? Or otherwise he would lose his job, right? I was thinking more like the owner of the company, but okay. This is because the person has a motivation to make the claim, whether it is true or not. However, the mere fact that the person has a motivation to make the claim does not make it false. For example, suppose a parent tells her son that sticking a fork in a light socket would be dangerous. Simply because she has a motivation to say this, obviously does not make her claim false. Alright? Example 1. She asserts that we need more military spending, but this is false, since she's only saying it because she's a Republican. Right. Now that you have the Democrats in power, you're spending less on military? Is that so? I doubt it. I doubt you're spending more than the Republicans did. This has nothing to do, that's why these examples are bad in some cases. This has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. Seriously doesn't. Military spending. This has to do with influences to the government. Influences in the government, influences to the government. What do you call that? My English is not so good. It's not from. It's not of. Yeah, I think it's in. The military spending has more to do with influences in the government. It doesn't sound right. Like lobbyists, you know? Example 2. I think that we should reject what Father Jones has to say about the ethical issues of abortion because he is a Catholic priest. After all, Father Jones is required to hold such views. Yeah? So, let's see. That's circumstantial ad hominem. The circumstance is that he is a Catholic priest. Therefore, you shouldn't accept what Father Jones has to say about certain ethical issues is a fallacy. You could attack him on his morality, you know? You could ask him for grounds why he holds a certain morality. And then he will say something like, well, God this or God that. And then you could say, which God? You know? The one that I'm looking for when people say that, and I try and attack them, is the one from the Bible, the God from the Bible. And then I would say, well, do you have a name for this God? And they would say, yeah, I believe he's called Yahweh or something like that. And I would say, are you aware that this is a Jewish God? And then they would have to, say that, yeah, it's actually a Jewish God. And I would say, are you a Jew? In most cases, the people would say, no, I'm not a Jew. So why do you believe in this Jewish God? Why do you not believe in one of our own gods? You know? We've got Wodan, Donar, Freya. You know, those are our gods. You see? Why do you not believe in their gods? Why not take their morale? You know? Example 3. Of course, the Senator from Maine opposes a reduction in naval spending. After all, Bath Iron Works, which produces warships, is in Maine. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I think you should have a strong military. Alright? Yeah, it's just that it shouldn't be used to needlessly attack countries that have nothing to do with terrorism. Or something like that. Terrorism is state-sponsored. Most of the times by countries like England. Alright? Comes from London. Or Washington, D.C. Alright? But just because there is false flag operations going on doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a strong military. You should. You should be able to defend your own country. You should have a strong naval force. But it's for defense, not for offense. You know, they're trying to make you think that it's defense because, what do they call it? Department of Defense, right? It used to be called Department of War, which is more appropriate. But they changed that name. Talk about newspeak, right? So, but anyway, I'm not someone that thinks that all military is wrong. No. I would rather have our Dutch military at the borders making sure no criminals are getting in. It's for defense. Not for letting fly our planes over Afghanistan in a so-called rebuilding program. That's ridiculous. Last example here. Bill claims that tax breaks for corporations increases development. Of course, Bill is the CEO of a corporation. Yeah. You get the example, right? I'm not going to go into it because there's a couple of things wrong there also. Next one is the no, Mike. Not like that. No. More like 1776, Mike, when you were fighting the English crown, the English king. More like that, you know? Protect your own country. Don't let other military forces invade you. That's what it's for. Why should we? Yeah, that's, never mind. Next is fallacy of composition. Description. What time is it, guys? It's 58. We're gonna have to stop this. And we'll pick this up, I'll try and remember that we're at fallacy of composition. Let me write it down so I will remember it. And we'll pick this up probably next week. And at some point we will get back to grammar. But we're stuck with fallacies at the moment. Fallacy of composition is next week, guys. Thanks a lot for listening, everybody in the chat room. Thanks a lot. Where are you? Where are you? Got 20 seconds left. Thanks, Ben, Dan, Hecty, Joe, Jules, Lady Pitbull, Ravai, Rooster, Mike, Solvinur, Lux Luna. Oh, wow! That's Light of the Moon, Lux Luna. And Iota. Thanks all. Take care, everybody. See you next time.